Do you know what type of a language learner you are? Are you a visual, oral, verbal, or maybe a kinesthetic learner? But once you identify your learner type, this is one of the best ways to improve and speed up your language learning, because you can start to create a personalized language learning plan and choose the most appropriate tools, resources, and methods that will work specifically for you. Hi, my name is Michelle. I'm the Intrepid Guide, your guide to languages and travel. Now, if you're new to my channel, make sure that you hit that subscribe button and click on the bell notification so you get an alert when I post more videos like these. Today I'm going to be sharing with you how to learn a language that's customized to you based on your learner type, plus tips on which language resources will work best for you. Now, this is all part of my 4-step personalized language learning plan that will help you to really succeed in language learning. Now, there are many health benefits to learning a new language, but one of the biggest challenges is finding time to dedicate to language learning. It takes dedication, perseverance, and organization, especially when trying to fit your language study around a full-time job. So in order to help you to organize your language learning journey, I've compiled a simple step-by-step checklist to help you get started. Now, if you implement these steps, you'll be well on your way to fluency. So let's get started. The first step is identify and understand your learning style. Your learning style or your learning type should be the determining factor in how you choose to learn a language. Now, there's no sense in studying in a manner that isn't going to help you progress. If you aren't exactly sure what your learner style is, you can simply click on the link in the description below and take a short quiz so you can find out. Now, it gets very specific, so be sure to read all the results that you get afterwards. There are 4 types of language learners that apply to the majority of learners out there. There are visual, oral, verbal, and kinesthetic learners. Next, we'll dive into each one of these and identify the best way to learn a language according to each style, plus which resources go hand in hand with these learner types. Now, the first is visual learners. Now, the best way visual learners learn a language is when they have an image or another visual medium to trigger data in their mind. Now, if you're a visual learner, a podcast on its own isn't going to cut it. Sure, it's great to hear the spoken language and be able to rewind and repeat, but without something to see and pair with what you're hearing, you probably won't remember much. So if this is you, watching YouTube lessons like this one perhaps is likely to be far more effective than simply listening to the audio. If you do have audio, such as an audiobook, try accompanying it with an ebook version or supporting text so that you work alongside the visual medium as well. That way you'll optimize your memorization and comprehension of that material. Here are a few tips if you're a visual learner. So tip 1, write or draw a roadmap that plots out your fluency goals and keep it with you in your language learning notebook or journal. This should include markers to show progress along the way, with detailed notes taken between markers indicating what you're learning and how. Maybe there was a certain lesson, a piece of media, or trick you've come up with that you really seem to resonate with you and jump you forward. So jot it down and then develop a plan to apply that tactic to future lessons. Step 2, watch other people speak the language as much as possible. Like, actually watch them, focus on their lips, their facial expressions, their mannerisms, and try to mimic these yourself and build up your muscle memory. Tip 3 is to read articles and graded text in the language you are learning. So viewing words, particularly conjugated verbs, will help you to comprehend their use in sentences and how the language works phonetically. Tip 4, one of the best ways to learn a language is by accessing online content from national broadcasting sites around the world. So sites like the BBC in the UK or NRK in Norway, because I'm learning Norwegian, sometimes restrict who can access this content. But you can access movies and documentaries if you use a VPN to unlock that content. So I recommend getting NordVPN, which I've linked to in the description below if you want to check it out. A VPN also gives you an extra layer of protection as you surf the internet, as it protects your IP address, which identifies your actual location. It's best practice to use a VPN anyway, so it's a great investment to make. And once you join, you can access it across all your devices from your desktop, your smartphone, and your tablet. The second learner type is oral learners. Now, the best way oral learners learn a language is with audiobooks, podcasts, movies, and one-on-one lessons. Now, oral learners are a talented breed as they have the unique ability to capture information simply by hearing it. One of the key ways that an auditory learner can optimize their language learning experience is just to keep it simple. So if you enjoy listening to language learning podcasts like Live Lingua or Coffee Break Languages, and you experience consistent progress by working through the exercises or material, then stick with that medium. There's no need to add additional workflows or complicate things. So here are a few tips if you are an oral learner. So tip 1, oral learners tend to do very well in one-to-one immersive language lessons. Now this is because this mode allows you to converse directly with someone in the language you are learning, and more importantly, hear how they are pronouncing and conjugating words in general conversation. So you can use services like Live Lingua or italki to find professional teachers around the world and book either a lesson or a conversation lesson to practice with. Tip 2 is to talk a lot. Ask questions in the language that you are learning and then listen carefully to the response. When traveling in a country that speaks the language, volunteer to be the point of contact. And even if you aren't fluent in that language, you are going to benefit immensely from that experience. Tip 3 is to listen to the news and podcasts in the language that you are working on. So pause frequently to repeat what you hear and try to switch between male and female voices and different accents as much as possible to improve your overall comprehension. Tip 4, listen to music in the language as well. If you're alone or if you're not self-conscious, sing the lyrics out loud after listening to it a few times. Now, this can be a lot of fun. Music is a great way to improve your memory, which we have covered in another video about how to improve your memory for language learning, so check out the link to that in the description below. The third learner type is verbal learners. Now, the best way that verbal learners learn a language is with one-on-one lessons, group lessons, or having a conversation partner. Now, verbal learners have a lot in common with auditory learners in that they don't necessarily need that dominant visual aspect to help them to learn. Now, while they benefit both from conversation, there is one major difference. Verbal learners learn best when putting pen to paper, which we covered in my memory hacks video. Now, fingers to keyboard is great too, but putting pen to paper is shown to be more effective. One of the most effective ways for a verbal learner to learn a new language is to write down lesson material and repeat it back to themselves. So one-to-one or group lessons can be very effective for the verbal learner, provided there is ample opportunity for you to participate in conversation and jot things down afterwards. To supplement my group language classes, I also use italki, which is an online teaching platform where I get to have that one-on-one lesson with a native speaker. italki is great if you've got a busy schedule and you need it to fit a lesson in around your busy schedule that you have. So here are a few tips for verbal learners. Tip 1, at the end of a lesson, do a verbal recap of the material with your instructor or classmates. This ensures you're getting the best of both worlds, an incoming and outgoing language flow that is essential for comprehension and memorization. Tip 2 is to create flashcards or post-it notes and place them around your home. And as you pass them, repeat out loud what they say. And after you feel confident that you've learned them, replace them with new words and phrases. Tip 3 is to film or record yourself during your italki lessons or your group classes or whenever you are speaking the language, so you can watch them back later. You can notice any areas that you may be struggling with, especially pronunciation, and make a note to focus on improving them. Being able to go back to older videos and recordings is a great way to see your progress, which is especially important when you feel like you've hit a plateau. The fourth learner type is kinesthetic learners. Now, the best way that kinesthetic learners learn a language is by traveling to a destination, cultural immersion, and immersive one-on-one lessons. Now, as a kinesthetic learner, there is no better way for you to learn than to dive in and immerse yourself in the culture of the language. Daily experience, use, and forced situations are going to really help you to master the language faster and more completely than any other method. That's why I love going on language holidays, as it combines all these elements into a super fun and rewarding experience. Now, anything that incorporates hand-to-eye coordination is also going to benefit you, such as playing electronic games, sign language, acting, or even writing. But just like with verbal learners, using flashcards and doing group lessons are great for kinesthetic learners as well. It's all about the experience gained by using a language as much as possible and in many different situations. Here are a few tips for kinesthetic learners. Tip 1. Once you've reached a basic conversation level, try teaching a beginner. Now, this will not only help you to master what you've already learned, it serves as a stepping stone to propel yourself further into becoming increasingly confident and comfortable with the language. You'll find it easier to grasp new words, phrases, and even humor and sarcasm and incorporate them into your own speech. Tip 2 is to diversify your learning methods. Now, kinesthetic learners tend to be an active group of people who aren't much for sitting around. And having a variety of language learning apps and resources is going to keep things interesting and speed up your process overall. For example, you might use Mondly or listen to an audiobook during your morning commute to work. Do an italki lesson on Tuesdays, a group class on Wednesdays, watch a foreign movie with subtitles on Netflix or with Disney Plus on a Thursday, and do some journaling on a Friday. So there we have it. Those are the 4 different learner types. Now, after you've taken the quiz to identify what your learner type is, it's time to go to step 2, which is to create your own roadmap to fluency. Now, across all learning styles, there are 2 types of language students. There's passive and there's active. Now, identifying which group should be easy. It's so easy, in fact, I'm going to tell you the answer. Now, you want to be an active student. Why? Well, let's break down the 2 different types. A passive language student is one who signs up for lessons or a class thinking that their presence is enough. They believe it's on the teacher to teach them the language, and if they don't grasp it quickly enough, then it must mean that there's something wrong with the method or the teacher. Let's say a passive student has signed up for a private one-on-one lesson, and they have a lesson every Wednesday afternoon with a native speaker. Now, the passive student shows up, probably even on time. They work through the material presented and do the exercises. They rack their brain trying to accurately reply to questions posed by the teacher. But the thing is, the passive student doesn't progress much from week to week. Now, why is this? Well, because a passive student doesn't actually actively work on progressing themselves outside of the class. They don't study between lessons or converse or consume media with their target language. Passive students simply don't care enough about progressing at a steady pace. A passive Spanish student may want to speak Spanish and learn the differences between Latin American Spanish and European Spanish, or impress their friends by slipping in some Spanish idioms into their conversation, but they never reach this point because they don't put in the extra work required to get them there. You must be an active student to reach fluency. Now, an active student signs up for private one-to-one language lessons with the same instructor each week, and the active student shows up with, say, like a bottle of water, a cup of coffee, a notebook in hand, and is opened up to a fresh page. Now, the difference here is that the student works through all the material and exercises, answers questions in their target language, and racks their brain just as hard as the passive student, but at the end of the lesson, the active student asks for further reading material. Maybe it's a YouTube recommendation, other language learning resources to help them reinforce what they've learned in order to retain it ahead of the next lesson. Additionally, an active student finds a podcast that complements their lessons and makes a commitment to watch a movie with either subtitles or that is dubbed, and they do this at least once a week. So before each class, an active student reviews the material from the previous week in order so they can bring their A game to the next lesson. Before long, this active student is ordering for the group at dinner, confidently moving between present, past and future tense, and asking thoughtful questions throughout each lesson. They even crack jokes in their target language that makes their classmates laugh, and their teacher feels really proud. Now, the benefits of being an active student extend beyond the classroom. Once at a conversational level, the active student can justifiably apply for jobs that require their target language. They can travel to countries where that language is spoken and engage with the locals, and experience literature in the native language. Language learning and fluency is all about your approach and your ongoing level of commitment. The next step is step 3, and that is to immerse yourself in the language. Now, your active learning attitude is going to benefit you in this step as well. Now, when it comes to learning anything, the deeper you immerse yourself in it, the more you're going to understand it. So here are a few ways to fully immerse yourself in the language that you're learning. Tip 1, it's not where you live, it's how you live. Seek out local communities where you can speak the language. Whether it's eating in an Italian restaurant or a French restaurant or a Spanish restaurant, or attending a local language exchange event, find local opportunities where you'll be in an environment where your target language is spoken. Tip 2 is to do a semester abroad. Now this is perfect if you are a student because a semester abroad might be the easiest way for you to spend more time with your target language. Now your guidance counsellor or department head can plug you in the right schools and programs that would work best for you, and they can facilitate that process. Tip 3 is to go on a language holiday. Now this one is my personal favourite. Now the goal is to speak the language as much as possible, so visiting a native speaking country is the best way to do this. Now if you're a working adult, consider turning your travels into a language learning opportunity and go on a language holiday. So the idea here is that you spend your mornings in class and you use the afternoons to explore and put what you've learned into practice. Now I've done this a few times, and most recently I spent 2 weeks in Oslo learning Norwegian, and I documented that experience in a video which you can watch, and I've linked to that in the description below. Tip 4 is to find a language exchange partner. Now if moving or traveling abroad is not possible for you right now, the next best thing is to find a native speaker and to talk with them as much as possible. Now this often requires finding someone who wants to improve their English. So for half an hour each week, for example, you spend half of the time speaking in English and the other half speaking in your target language. Step 4, and the final step in the process, is to keep it up. Now lessons and immersion will definitely help you to get to a conversational level, but unless you flex your language muscles regularly and on an ongoing basis, you'll slowly forget what you've learned, unfortunately. So think back to your high school days. Can you remember how you used to solve an equation in algebra or calculus? And chances are that unless you use them regularly, odds are that you probably can't. Now, having a language exchange partner to regularly converse with is an excellent idea. So too is consuming the language through podcasts, movies, books, and music. How about changing the language on your smartphone, computer, or TV to your target language? Now, this will get your brain used to reading and thinking in that language, and will expose you to new words and verb tenses throughout your day. If you really want a challenge, then why don't you use a VPN like NordVPN and change your location so that every time you open a web browser or social media app, the ads and articles and all the general information you see will be in that language. And don't forget to stock up on these sticky notes too, and begin placing labels around your house, car, and office with words and phrases that you want to learn. And this is one of the best ways to keep your brain actively thinking in the language, especially if you repeat them as you pass them. The last thing I will say is that you've got this. Now you've seen how immersing yourself in the language and culture will help you to ensure that you progress quicker than if you were only to spend 90 minutes in a classroom per week without studying before your next lesson or for the following week. Now by incorporating these strategies, you're setting yourself up for success, and your future traveling self will thank you for it. So go ahead and take the test and come back and tell me, what language learner type are you? Let me know in the comments below, and make sure you watch my video on how to improve your memory for language learning. Now if you'd like to receive my best language learning tips straight to your inbox and exclusive offers, then click on the link in the description below to join my newsletter. In the meantime, hit that like button, subscribe to my channel, turn on those notifications so you get an alert when I post more videos like these. And until next time, thanks for watching and happy language learning. Bye!